What can you do to properly balance your T3 and T4 thyroid hormones? How do you know what diet is best for your current health status? After listening to this episode, you're going to have clarity on how to increase your T3 levels back to optimal levels. You're going to know how to determine whether you have Hashimoto's or Graves' disease or SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And you'll learn about some of the factors that help determine what diet is right for you. You're listening to the Best You podcast, where we teach you the healthy habits you need to look and feel like your best you. My name is Nick Carrier, and I'm an entrepreneur and body optimization coach who has coached over 600 people through our program, the 10-Week Transformation. The 10WT makes it simple for former athletes who struggle to prioritize their health and fitness to regain the confidence in their body that they once had. If this is your first time here, make sure you click the follow button on the Apple Podcast app or on Spotify, and make sure you're subscribing on YouTube as well. As well. Today we're going to hear from Risa Groux. Risa is a functional nutrition and certified autoimmune coach. She utilizes functional nutrition guidelines and comprehensive testing such as blood and stool tests to determine the roadmap of root issues. She helps people come up with a tailored nutrition plan based on symptoms and health concerns physically apparent in each person's body and their daily experiences. Again, if you're listening on the Apple Podcast app or on Spotify, make sure you hit the follow button so you don't miss any of the future episodes that we have coming out, because we've got some great ones coming down in the pipeline. For now, it's time to get closer and closer to your best you with Risa Groux. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Best You podcast. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Risa Groux. Risa, really excited to dive in today. We're going to kind of start off talking about autoimmune diseases and issues. I want to hear some kind of like success stories with some of the people that you've worked with and how exactly you've got them to work out of some of their autoimmune disorders, or at least reduce the negative side effects, kind of how autoimmune stuff relates to weight loss. Then talking about food frame and how everybody can eat for their in particular health status. And then lastly, kind of talking about nutrition detox and kind of what the point of that is, what it does, and everything like that. So to give you a little kind of overview of what I want to at least touch on today. But to start off with autoimmune diseases, and in particular the ones that I feel like you focus on the most, at least, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Hashimoto's and Graves' I know are a couple of the autoimmune diseases that you work with people the most on. Talk to us a little bit about what those are. Give us a brief overview, and then what somebody needs to know if they're looking to identify whether or not they have an autoimmune disorder.
Wow, that's a lot of question, but yeah, let's pull it apart. So Graves' and Hashimoto's, those are both autoimmune diseases that attack the thyroid. One of them produces an under amount of hormone, and the other one overproduces. And autoimmune, just to give you a little bit of an umbrella to start, autoimmune is when your body falsely believes that a gland, a tissue, or an organ is the enemy. So it starts to create antibodies and attacks that organ, gland, or tissue. So it could be different, parts of the body, obviously. So in Hashimoto's, that means that it's attacking the thyroid gland, and it eats the thyroid gland slowly. And it tends to do that while there is an underproduction of thyroid hormone. So your T3, which is your active thyroid hormone, tends to be lower than optimal. So some of the symptoms of that could be very fatigue, cold extremities, lack of weight loss. No matter what you do, you cannot lose weight, but it's very easy to gain weight. Constipation, anxiety, hair thinning, nails brittle, outside of the eyebrows go. Those are some very constipation. Did I say that? Lots of very typical symptoms of a low producing thyroid. You could be hypothyroid and not be in autoimmunity, not have Hashimoto's yet, or most people eventually do get Hashimoto's, but not necessarily always, but most. And there's different stages of autoimmunity. And then when you have Graves', it's when you are attacking the thyroid hormone, but your brain is making a lot of TSH, and that TSH is making a lot of thyroid hormone T4. That's our inactive thyroid hormone. And it's just overproducing. So some of the symptoms you would have is weight loss. You'll have heart palpitations. You can't sit still. You're very anxious. Those are very typical signs of hyperthyroid.
Gotcha. Um, when it comes to Hashimoto's, you said that it's nearly impossible, or it's seemingly very impossible for a lot of people to lose weight. What exactly is going on there that's preventing people from losing the body fat or the weight that they want to be able to lose?
Yeah, so the thyroid gland sits right here in our throat, and it's in charge of our temperature gauge, our metabolism. It also affects blood flow, and it affects almost every system in the body. So it's very reactive and responsive to other systems. So it's critical that it is very, it's optimal. It's working optimally. And what happens is when we're specifically looking at the active thyroid hormone T3. T4 is your inactive thyroid hormone. It means you have 4 atoms of iodine. You have to cleave off 1 atom of iodine, and it makes this conversion into T3, which is your active form. We only have 7% of that equation is active. 93% is inactive. So it's really important to have that free T3. That's what's available. That's what's active. That's what's usable, to make sure that that is in optimal ranges. Now, optimal ranges typically are 3.5 to 4.0 on every major test. And as we age, we produce less and less. But I find, doing this for a million years, that anybody 3.0 or higher is going to feel pretty good. They have a good chance of losing some weight. And when it's lower than 3.0, it could be 2.8, it could be 2.1. 2.1 is pretty bottom of the barrel. I've seen 1.9. But those people are coming into my office. I just want to give them a pillow and a blanket. They are exhausted. They cannot lose weight no matter what. They're just gaining weight. And their metabolism is just not working. So they cannot break down their food. They just can't burn it. And that is where it's super frustrating. I don't think there's anything more frustrating than going to work and not getting paid, right?
Yeah, yeah. So from that standpoint, let's continue. Let's continue. If somebody does have low thyroid and they are below that 3.0 area, and they do need more active T3 hormone so that it can better support the other systems in the body and get that metabolic rate back up. What are some things, what are all the things that we need to start doing, lifestyle wise, nutrition wise, supplementation wise, in order to start getting that T3 up?
Yeah, so everybody has a different situation, a different scenario. So you might have plenty of T4 and you're not converting it to T3. So that's a conversion issue. If you have a conversion issue, I would absolutely recommend some things like selenium, some iodine, things like that. All those minerals will help convert with that conversion process. So for instance, 2 Brazil nuts, those big fat nuts that everybody leaves in the jar, that's what I would say, have 2 of those a day. I buy them, I put them in my freezer so they don't go rancid, and then I just throw them in my shake or snack on them during the day. So that gives you enough selenium, enough minerals to make that transition. I would stay away from gluten. Gluten slows down the thyroid. It's just not great for the thyroid. And if we have antibodies, it's a whole kind of different situation. So antibodies, for sure, I'm taking away gluten, I'm taking away dairy, I'm taking away soy. So soy and the thyroid are not really good friends. So no matter what your scenario is for thyroid, I would take out soy. So that's soybeans. A lot of processed foods have soybean oils. A lot of restaurants cook with soybean oil. And there's a very common, popular supplement, vitamin D, that walks in my office frequently. It's sold at Costco and all the major stores. And it has no vitamin K for absorption, but it also has soybean oil and vegetable oil in the actual supplement. So you have to eat and read your ingredients in your supplements.
Wow. So you said that one of the issues could be a conversion issue, T4 to T3. You're just not converting enough. How do you know if you're not converting enough? Is it simply just how much, if you have plenty of T4 that you kind of know, like, okay, that's a sign that it's just not converting enough to T3?
Correct. If you have enough T4, we usually like that number in the 8s, and I'm talking about the free T4, right? What's available. When we look at hormones, we're looking at free and total. Total is a sum of what's bound, usually proteins, and what's available. And free is what's just available, right? That's what we use. But the total is what we use for guidance. So somebody might have enough T4, let's take that scenario, and they're just not making enough T3, that's a conversion issue. If somebody doesn't have enough T4, let's say, because we like that number in the eights, but I'll take 7, and I don't really care how much T4 you have because it's inactive. At the end of the day, I care how much T3 you have. But let's just say you have enough T3 and you don't have enough T4. We're going to typically see your TSH, your thyroid stimulating hormone, go up because it starts in the pituitary, which is the size and shape of a pea in the brain, and that's what gets the ball going. It makes what's called TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, and it goes through the liver, and that creates T4. So sometimes people can have enough T4, but they don't have enough T3. You're not converting. Sometimes people have not enough T4, and your TSH goes up and up and up and up. Very commonly, we see a high TSH, and we see a low T4 and a low T3, because the chances of them converting when they already have low numbers is pretty low. But it happens, but not very often. So that's usually what we see. Conventional medicine tests for TSH. Typically, that's the only marker they test for. On rare occasions, I'll see a T4, and really on rare occasions, I'll see a T3 as well. So if they have an elevated TSH, they're waiting all the way till they're at 4.5. That's lab range. So if you're over that, then they'll give you medication. But I say, why is your brain working so hard? Why are you trying to make so much hormone? I just met with somebody today whose TSH was high, and then their T4 and T3 were perfectly fine. So that person is just working harder. Their brain is working harder to make enough hormone, but they have enough hormone. They don't need medication. They don't need a conversion issue. They just need to quiet that pituitary. They need some nutrients so that that pituitary does not have to work that hard.
So let me try to break that down a little bit, because that started to get a little bit over my head. So the pituitary releases the hormone TSH, which then helps to is that what helps to convert T4 to T3? You said creates T4. Okay.
Correct. Is in the liver, and then it creates T4. That's our inactive thyroid hormone.
Okay. And so what is the dangers of having TSH too high or too low, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question, because so typically we see it go high, and high tells me that that the pituitary is working hard to create something. So usually I'm looking for what's low. So imagine this, Nick, like you go to that science museum, you're on the second floor and you're dropping the ball down the track. It goes through the tunnel, the domino set, it rings the bell, and 5 minutes later it lands in the cup. That's very similar to how complex your thyroid is, right? All these mechanisms have to happen for the ball to get into the cup. So when we see that somebody's up there on the top throwing more balls down, we're usually assuming they're throwing more balls down because something's not getting into the cup. So that scenario I gave you with my client that I worked with today, that wasn't the case for him. His pituitary was just working hard. So we were just focusing on that. But typically in conventional or allopathic medicine, when your TSH is too high, they're going to immediately put you on medication because they're going to try and get that down, which, yes, I would try to get that down for sure, but it's usually because something is low.
So you want to figure out what's low, what's deficient to help, because maybe you can take a supplement for that or change your dietary behavior so that you can get that thing low, and then therefore TSH self-regulates back down.
Exactly. And I also look, and in functional medicine, we look at this, but I order 9 markers of the thyroid. So I'm looking at reverse T3, because if you've got a lot of systemic inflammation or you have a lot of cortisol production, our stress hormone, we're going to be pulling from our reserves for our T3. So you might have enough T4 and you might be converting, but you're stealing from your storage of T3 because you're under stress or because you're inflamed. And then we also look at T3 uptake, which is where your sex hormones are competing for that thyroid site. So for guys, it's typically testosterone, and for women, it's estrogen. But if women go really high, then there's testosterone usually that are involved in dysregulating that T3 as well. So as I said, there's so many parts to this thyroid that all of them need to be looked at, where in conventional medicine, we really don't. I rarely, ever see a reverse T3 or T3 uptake on any conventional tests.
Okay. So let's stick on the T3. You know, we talked about, I think, if it was a conversion issue, what are the other things that might cause T3 to be low? I think you kind of just touched on it a little bit. You know, if you're stressed out or you're really inflamed, that's going to pull from your T3, potentially keeping you in a hypothyroid state, if you will. What are other things that will cause T3 to be too low?
So there's several things. So gluten could really be affecting your thyroid, and which would cause your T3 to go low. An abundance of toxins in your system could really affect your thyroid. We are so inundated by toxins. I know you want to talk about that, but the average American female comes in contact with over 200 toxins every morning just before she's left the bathroom. So if you think about the nail polish, the makeup, the hairspray, the shampoo, the deodorant, you know, the moisturizers, all that stuff, and of course, then you slap on some perfume at the end, right? And maybe you're breathing in the Febreze or the air fresheners in your house or in the car on the way to work or something like that.
Yeah.
We're just inundated. So there's a lot of toxins that are called endocrine disruptors, which can absolutely affect your thyroid. Leaky gut will affect your thyroid as well. Viruses can affect your thyroid. So if you have an active, let's say, Epstein-Barr virus, that can dysregulate blood sugar and thyroid and cause up to 33 autoimmune diseases. So that's one of the things that I look for. Another thing is low vitamin D can absolutely affect your thyroid and making a low T3. The other one is MTHFR. That is a gene mutation I test everybody for. And so if you are not taking the proper B vitamins and you're not methylating optimally, then that's going to affect your thyroid as well. And pathogens. So any kind of overgrowth of bad gut bacteria or any parasites can cause Hashimoto's. There's a parasite called Blastocystis hominis, and that is very correlated with Hashimoto. So that's the autoimmune to your thyroid.
Yeah. What is it about the T3 hormone that makes it so involved in all of these different processes? Like there's so many different things that could cause low T3 or that steals from the T3. Like, why is it so versatile?
It's a good question. Why is it the victim of everybody's desire, right? To dysregulate it. It's so fragile. It's a symphony. Our body is a symphony, and we need every single part. And you know, it wouldn't sound the same without the percussions, and it wouldn't sound the same without the violins. And so it's part of the symphony, but it's an integral part of that symphony. So your whole endocrine system really is. Your cortisol can do a lot of damage as well if that's high or low. That can cause a lot of destruction. And sex hormone imbalance is another one. You know, there's 5 reasons why we don't lose weight or why we easily gain weight. It took me years to put this together, and this is just easy to talk about, but they are blood sugar dysregulation, right? And insulin resistance. I'm referring to that as well as prediabetes or diabetes. Thyroid dysregulation, which we just pretty much unpacked. And then cortisol, our stress hormone. That's a big one. And then what did I say? Thyroid, sex hormones, blood sugar. Did I say blood sugar? Blood sugar, thyroid.
You hadn't said sex hormones yet. You said blood sugar, thyroid dysregulation, cortisol, sex hormones.
Yes, and then and sex hormones is a big one, and then the last one is a buildup of toxins, because toxins live in fat cells and fat cells. So it's really important to get those rid of those. Now that's under the assumption that we're eating well and we're moving our body and we're sleeping well. And if that's the case and you're still not losing weight, then one of those, if not more than one, are dysregulated.
Wow. Wow. I want to stay on the T3 conversation. Probably hope maybe the last question or so. This has been great and super fascinating. I'm glad that we've gotten into depth here. And I know this is going to be an it depends answer, but if somebody has a low T3, let's say maybe, I don't know what a maybe typical low T3, if it's 2.5, give or take or whatnot, how long can somebody might expect to change some of their behaviors or add some of these good things in order to start getting up into a healthier range? Again, I know it's going to depend on everybody's situation, the adherence of whatever it is that you tell them to start doing. But generally speaking, to give somebody hope who might have low T3 and an idea of how long to expect to start maybe feeling better.
Great question, and I wish I had a very concrete answer for it. But if we had medication, let's say you're really low on your free T3 and or your T4 and your TSH is lab high, and they give you some medication. There's different types of medication. There's synthetic, which is the most popular. They get a script for levothyroxine or Synthroid, which is just a synthetic T4. So they're giving it to you and they're hoping you convert it. So I'm not a big fan of that one. I don't see that one working most of the time. And it's by far the most prescribed one rather. And, but my favorite ones are the bioidentical or desiccated hormones coming from usually a cow or a pig. And that has both T4 and T3. And it's not synthetic, it's real hormones. So we usually see the needle move much quicker with that. Now, given that, if you start getting on medication, I'm testing you 3 to 4 weeks after you've started it. I can see the needle move between 3 and 4 weeks. Usually people will start to feel better. Their energy will start picking up. They'll start losing weight in about 3 to 4 weeks. Now, if they don't do medication, they make lifestyle choices. That answer is a little bit more difficult because I'm looking at root causes. Is there a virus? Is there a pathogen? How long is it going to take to kill that pathogen? How long is it going to take to deactivate that virus? All of those questions, it just depends. It could be a short, it could be a month. But usually it's a little bit more intricate and complicated than that. If it's blood sugar dysregulation, that could take a long time if you're in diabetic state. If you're insulin resistant and it depends on what you do and what those root causes are.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that was great. That gave so much good context on autoimmune, Hashimoto's in particular, and what to do, how it relates to weight loss and stuff like that. So that was great. I want to kind of transition into food frame. I actually took the free quiz on your website about essentially how to eat based off of what you're kind of experiencing, and you kind of frame it up into, I guess, like 7 kind of common diets, if you will, and you recommend one based off of the answers in your quiz and stuff like that. Talk to us about how do you come up with what determines what is the right thing to eat for somebody? Like, I know, like, for example, I think there was like, are you experiencing bloating and gas? And like, there are obviously a lot of different questions, but what helps determine what is the right food makeup or diet makeup for somebody?
Right. So when I first started my practice decades ago, I kind of put everybody on the same diet type, right? Let's just eat an anti-inflammatory diet, food, lifestyle, and some people would just thrive and other people would not. So I'm like, what's the deal? So I finally realized that we should all be eating according to our health status, our current health status, right? So it could change. And what I do is I do extensive testing. I do a very comprehensive blood panel and a stool test, right? When you first work with me, that's the first thing we're doing on that first day. I'm ordering those labs. And then then that gives me the blueprint of where you are. Do you have insulin resistance? Are you pre-diabetic? Are you hypoglycemic? Is your thyroid sluggish? Are you having that bloating and constipation or chronic diarrhea? Am I looking for SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth? Because somebody who is, has SIBO and I give them, I put them on a vegetarian diet, they are going to be miserable. They're going to be bloated the whole time with all that fiber. So we have to eat specifically designed. If you have blood sugar dysregulation, I'm more inclined to give you a paleo program or a keto program. But if you're a female and you've got, let's say, high stress, and let's say you're male or female and you don't have a gallbladder, or I test your steatocrit and your stool test, and I realize you're having a hard time absorbing, digesting fats, I am absolutely not going to suggest keto for you. So, you know, and I feel so frustrated because there's so many phenomenal books that come out with all these different ways of eating, and I love them. I think they're well researched and they work great for some people, but they do not work great for everyone. So everybody needs to eat according to their personal health status at that time. So somebody with bloating and constipation or diarrhea, those people likely either have SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or perhaps they have a deficiency in digestive enzymes. They're not making enough digestive enzymes. They're older, they've had too much stress, they've had a slew of antibiotics, and they just can't make their own digestive enzymes. We give them an enzyme, and next thing you know, their bloating goes away. We change their microbiome a little bit, give them a probiotic and some short-chain fatty acids, a postbiotic, and next thing you know, they're thriving. But if it's SIBO, then I'm definitely going to recommend my low FODMAP program. So that way we can starve that bacteria that's parked in the wrong place, should be in the large intestine, but it's in the small intestine, that's causing so much discomfort. I would say that's probably one of the most number one things that is underdiagnosed, that walks into my office all the time. I actually have a couple doctors who send all their chronically bloated patients to me because they just not sure what to do. So
you're saying SIBO is one of the most commonly underdiagnosed. Okay. I want to get back to that in just a second. But with regards to what your current health status is, now, obviously that is behavioral. And with regards to what's going to determine your current health status, it's going to be, you know, maybe how have you been eating? How have you been exercising? What toxins have you been exposed to over the last year, 2 years, etc.? Do you know how genetic what diet is right for you is versus how behavioral what diet is right for you is?
Great question. So we have so much science available to us now, and I do a ton of genetic testing, and I do a genetic test that really specifies on nutrients. So I can tell that if you have the genes to have lower absorption of vitamin D or calcium, then we know that it's going to be really important for you to get that either in your diet or supplementing with it. If you, and the genetic testing I do tells us what kind of workouts you are better at, right? You're more enhanced with maybe power and strength, or you're diminished in what do you call it? Not cardiovascular, what's the word I'm looking for? In endurance. So you might be more, you know, you wouldn't be a long distance runner, you'd be more of a weightlifter, right? So it depends on where your genetics lie. But now genetic testing is great. It gives us kind of a baseline of who you are, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's your destination. Now with workouts, it probably does, but like the test that I do says, you know, with exercise, in relation to exercise or eating different fats, if you ate more fat or less fat, would that help you with additional weight loss? Or would working out more than the requirement help you with weight loss? Some people it does. Well, those people, you're going to want to work out more. But some people, you're good with 3 days a week, and you genetically won't lose any more weight if you work out 2 more days a week. So those things are, I find really fascinating and really helpful. It also, my test tells you how you are with gluten, your likelihood of type 2 diabetes, your likelihood of celiac, and how you do with dairy and caffeine. So that's very helpful information. Again, it doesn't mean that you don't have to do something, or you do, or you're going to get this or you're not, but it gives you the information to make those decisions.
With the genetic testing and the fitness side of things, what exactly is it? What exactly are the genes saying? Is it like, you know, for example, are they saying that you've got more type 2 muscle fibers and so you're going to be better for strength and power? Or are they telling you that you have more type 1 muscle fibers so you're more built for endurance? Or you have a gene that helps pump blood more efficiently throughout the body so you're better for cardiovascular type exercise? Like, what exactly are the genes reading, or like I don't even know how to phrase the right question, but I think you know what I'm getting at, so I'll let you run with that.
Right. So these are different types of genes and which mutations you have, right? So because we get one from our mother and we get one from our father. So combined, these will create either more endurance or more power and strength or motivation to work out. That's an interesting one to me. So they're just genes that indicate what our power, what our strength is, and where we're enhanced or where we're diminished, or if we're typical. It's interesting because I do a fair amount of testing, and sometimes I'll see like elite, I'll see an elite athlete, and these are just like enhanced, and you're just like, of course, I usually know that before I even get the test results, because this is a very active person, or very athletic. And so I usually go, of course they have this, and it's very interesting to see that.
Yeah. Let's finish off today discussing SIBO. You said that that's one of the most commonly maybe undiagnosed issues that you're currently seeing. First off, give us a little bit more small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. Give us a little bit more what it is, how somebody might be able to know if they have it, and then finishing with what we can do to start reversing it.
Yeah, so SIBO is a bit tricky because I don't think that a lot of people know what to look for, but the symptoms of small intestinal bacteria overgrowth are chronic bloating, and it's usually paired with either chronic diarrhea or chronic constipation or alternating of those. Those are really the main symptoms. And what it is basically is a bacteria that parks itself in the small intestines rather than the large. And what happens is there are certain types of carbohydrates that will feed this bacteria and cause a lot of water retention or gas production, right? There's different types. And so there's a methane gas production. So these people, they can eat an apple and they look like they're 9 months pregnant. That carbohydrate feeds that bacteria and causes that water retention or gas retention. And it's very painful. It's very annoying. It's, you could have a flat stomach when you wake up and then literally look 6 months pregnant when you're, by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So for that one, it's really important to eat low FODMAP foods. And FODMAP is an acronym that stands for fermented oleosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. So in English, those are different types of carbohydrates that will absorb that water or that gas. And so it's really important. It's a 30 to 90 day protocol, and you have to be really strict at the beginning, and then it gets a little easier as time goes on. But I've done it myself, and it's very effective. SIBO is very recurring, so unfortunately, people will deal with this for a lifetime. And a doctor will typically give you a medication called rifaximin or Xifaxan, and it is an antibiotic that tries to kill it. Unfortunately, no matter what you do, and no matter which modality you choose to address it, they're all about 70% successful. So I've had people who have severe diarrhea for years and years and years and years, and they kept pushing it off. And then eventually we've had to do a few different types of treatment. So another treatment that I do a supplement protocol that's natural, basically antibiotics, but they're all real herbs and food that help kill that bacteria. And then the low FODMAP lifestyle starves that bacteria. So we want to starve it so it becomes non-existent. That's one plan that I do that I have great success with, unless they're really, really bad. I might have to do that 2 times. And then there's a third path that you can take called the elemental diet, which is just a protein water, basically, shake. I tried it. I've got a lot of stamina. I can do almost anything. I had a really tough time with it. I only made it 4 days. You're supposed to do it 14 to 21, really 21 days to completely starve that bacteria. So it's not my first choice. I've only had to do that with a couple of people when they've had severe cases. And in that case, they did really pretty much all 3 of those. And then the antibiotics will work. It's usually a 10 to 12 day course, and it will work, but usually it comes back. And then the doctor usually will write another script, but it comes back. So it really is a concerted effort of both diet and addressing the killing of that bacteria.
Yeah. Last question, just because I'm curious about it. If let's say, you do the combination of having maybe an antibiotic to kill the bacteria and then low FODMAP diet to starve the bacteria, and you get into a place where the symptoms have gone away and the SIBO has gone away, is it a matter of ensuring that you don't eat the foods that cause the intestinal bacteria overgrowth in the first place, and like knowing what those particular foods are? Or is it just something that like manifests inside of the body regardless of what exactly it is that you're eating?
So again, it depends on the microbiome. So those people are usually have a lack of digestive enzymes. They don't have a very acidic environment. Maybe they're taking antacids, maybe they're eating a lot of processed foods, a lot of antibiotics, a lot of stress. So they don't have a very acidic environment. When you have an acidic environment in your gut, things can't live in an acidic environment. Viruses can't live there. Pathogens can't live there. Bacteria tend to not be able to live there. So that is the first thing that I would address, is the microbiome, because we don't want to have an atmosphere to host this bacteria. So did garlic and onions, very high FODMAP foods, did that cause SIBO? Probably not. Did it feed it? Absolutely it did. So would I recommend you taking out those onions and garlic for a long period of time? Probably, but not forever. There's so much benefit to both of them, but we just have to make sure that we're adding one thing at a time when you're ready. So if you start adding back in garlic and you start bloating again, I say cut it out and wait. Give it another couple of weeks, maybe a month again. And eventually you'll be ready to get in there and, be able to digest it without any bloating.
Gotcha. Well, this has been absolutely great. So informative around autoimmune stuff, how it relates to just overall health, the T3, T4 conversation that was super fascinating, and then diving into specific nutrition based off of your current health status. That was so informative. You guys need to make sure you go learn more about Risa. Go follow her on Instagram at Risa Groux Nutrition, and that's in the show notes. But for those of you guys listening, that's RISA GROUX and then nutrition. That's how you spell her name. She also has an awesome course on thyroid health that you can go check out on her website at risagrouxnutrition.com. Again, all of this is going to be in the show notes. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is she has a book called Food Frame, which we just kind of talked about how to identify what is the right diet path for your current health status. So make sure you go learn more about her and follow her at all those places so you can take what we've discussed today, which was a lot of amazing stuff, but relatively in depth, and go apply it based off of your situation. But Risa, are there any other things that people need to know or go learn more about you or places to look?
Yeah, no, everything is there. And I do a lot of detoxing because I just clean out that liver and the blood and everything. And it's not a weight loss program, but everybody loses weight. I believe that weight loss is a side effect of wellness. So it's a wellness program. And I'm happy to offer your listeners 10% off the detox.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. We'll make sure we have that in the show notes as well. Yeah, that's one thing we didn't get to talk about today, but hey, we'll have to have you on again at some point because this has been super fascinating. I know really beneficial for a lot of people. So if you guys know somebody who needs to hear this, make sure you share it with them. Make sure you're following the podcast on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. If you're not yet already, make sure you're subscribing on YouTube as well. But other than that, Risa, it's been an absolute joy and blast to have you on today. Super educational and a lot of great stuff for people to use and apply. But that's all we got today. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Man, I really feel like I learned a ton in that interview, and I have a much greater understanding of how the T3 hormone works and how to determine what diet is most appropriate for myself. If you're ready to lose 7 to 15 pounds this summer so that you can look and feel your best, then join the 10-week transformation from April 22nd to June 27th. Spots are filling up, so go ahead and get signed up as soon as you can. You can join me in Nashville, or you can join me anywhere virtually by going to nickcarrier.com/10WT. Again, go to nickcarrier.com/10WT so you can lose 7 to 15 pounds this summer and feel as confident in your bathing suit as you've ever felt. I'm not going to lie to you because the summer is hard with all the vacations and the celebrations. Staying healthy and fit is tough during the summer. And look, you're probably not going to be perfect, but I'm not looking for perfect. And I'm going to be your biggest advocate when you fall down and you screw up. I'm going to pick you right back up. I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to dust you off and get you right back on track. So go to nickcarrier.com/10WT to sign up for the next 10-week transformation today, starting April 22nd. Again, nickcarrier.com/10WT. Some of my biggest takeaways from Risa from this episode were the following. Number one, your T3 hormone is used by a lot of different systems and functions inside of our body. And ensuring that we have proper T3 levels is crucial, especially for women who tend to experience more thyroid issues. If your T3 levels are below 3.0, then aiming to get more selenium and iodine in your diet can help in removing things like gluten, dairy, and soy. Number two, the 5 things that can hold you back from seeing weight loss if you're doing everything right are: number 1, your blood sugar levels or insulin resistance. Number 2, thyroid disorder or disease. Number 3, your cortisol levels. Number 4, your sex hormones. And number 5, a buildup of toxins. And then third and finally, paying attention to your blood sugar, your hormone levels, and your digestion can help you determine what diet is right for you. I mean, if what you're currently eating is causing those things to be out of whack, then it's probably time to make a change. There was some great information today from Risa, and I hope you got something out of it. I hope you learned something. I hope you share it with a friend or family member, and ultimately, I hope that it helps you get closer and closer to your best you.